Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
How many tabs do you guys have open right now?
Oh, like at least 30, maybe more.
Definitely a lot. Too much.
Yeah, it's tough to keep up with them all. Why is there not a solution that we can put everything within one roof on one tab?
I mean, I feel like it's just kind of difficult. You know, there's a lot of components going on.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces, I would say.
Have you guys heard of Hospitality Hub?
No, what's that?
No.
Thanks to our sponsor, TravelNet, you can now integrate the best solutions into Hospitality Hub, a single tool within the award-winning Track software. Optimize and integrate with Hospitality Hub, the most powerful platform for property management teams. Learn more with the link in our show notes.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We got the full GMH crew online at once. It's a rare moment. It's a rare moment in history.
Yeah, it's great to all be together. This is fun.
One big happy family, reconnected, reunited. How's your guys' week/weekend?
It's good. Did some dancing.
A lot more chills than Brandy's was, apparently.
Way more chill. Anybody else recovering from a... Oh, no. Jamie, you're at a conference, right?
Yeah, I was at the Hunter Hotel Investment Conference here in Atlanta. So that was home conference for me. I think there was about 2,000 people there, and broader hotel investment community. Sort of getting the update on what's going on in the short-term rental industry was pretty exciting. But not nearly as exciting, I think, Will, as the STR Wealth Conference that you were hosting. How was that?
Oh, it was great. It wasn't about a lot of investment in hotels. There was some boutique hotel talk, which was really fascinating to see the amount of STR owners and operators trying to shift that way. But it was great. Me and Julie George crushed it on stage. Got to MC a little bit, have a little fun, try to get the audience engaged and keep them on track. So it was a good time. Can't complain. I'm a little sick though. This weekend I would have gone dancing and had fun, but I been recovering, trying to take a break.
Stay in all weekend, Will?
Yeah, it was a real bummer. I missed out on brunch.
Oh no.
Yeah, big bummer. But all is well. Michael, how was Donuts with the Sun with Oliver?
Every Saturday.
Good.
It's probably been going for 2.5, 3 years at this point. So
yeah,
we've got our Saturday morning routine.
Love it. That's so cute.
It. You're living the life that we all wish we had, for sure.
Yeah, real wild.
Well, you guys want to jump into some stories before we go into the main topic of preventing a crisis in our industry?
Let's do it.
Jamie, why don't you kick off, since you had a special guest on your show the other day?
Yeah. So I had sent this one in on last week, March 21st. Placemaker landed a $65 million raise to fund their next level of growth. And Placemaker is a urban short-term rental operator, sort of operating in the sort of combination between the multifamily and hospitality space. They're formerly known by Y Hotel, doing sort of pop-up short-term rentals in multifamily buildings as a lease-up, and now they're sort of moving much more into sort of permanent short-term rental operations, but combining both short-term, mid-term, long-term rentals all under one space that really optimizes the profitability for the real estate, which is, I think, the future. It sort of opens up our industry, the hospitality industry, into so much more potential supply, and bringing in a lot of options for existing tenants and things like that. It's and the growth that they've seen has really been amazing. And in the space that they're operating in, sort of the urban environment, sort of not only making it through COVID and able to see it on the other side, but now a $65 million raise is pretty impressive. And just a shout out to Jason. I had interviewed him, their CEO, on our podcast, AirDNA, the STR Data Lab, a few months ago, and he talks through his business, the outlook, and what he sort of sees as sort of the future of hospitality real estate.
Jamie, I read in one article that they're going to be buying properties. Is that true? It didn't seem accurate.
Yeah, I don't see that they're buying properties. I think they're finding partners that are going to be buying properties that they can manage. But I don't think, and with this raise, they're actually spending that to buy any assets.
Makes sense. I was trying to figure out why they sounded super familiar. I forgot that they were once called Y Hotel, so I was like, oh, now I know who that is.
Everybody's raising and changing their names, apparently. So,
yeah, it's a trend.
It's wild. It's good to see urban operators are getting the money that seemed like it was drying up with, how Saunders not doing very well in the public markets, and a few others have kind of faded away out of the picture. So it's good to see at least a few are holding on strong and chugging away and keep on building. So well done, Romy. Well done, Y Hotel /Placemaker.
Yeah, and that's something that I see as a need in for urban supply to really come back, is growing urban supply in a way that's going to sort of work with the regulatory environment. So either taking over whole buildings, getting them permitted as a hotel, so you can really operate them in a way that's going to be sustainable and going to sort of add to the supply in a good way.
Yeah, I agree. Next story, Brandy, you're kind of the one that showed this one to the group. Do you want to jump into the ChatGPT plugin side of things?
Yeah. So Expedia and Kayak are using the ChatGPT plugins, and I think this is just kind of the beginning of what we're going to start seeing across, all industries, but companies really using the power behind this tool to make the customer experience better. So it's going to be really exciting. I mean, my personal use of ChatGPT has gone through the roof recently, so it's like pretty obvious this is like a great fit for them. So it'll be cool to see what they can do.
I was gonna say, Michael and Jamie, you guys been using ChatGPT as well. Any good use cases out there for the listeners?
Saves a ton of money on legal fees. If you can pull out any clauses and write your own contracts and then have a lawyer just make sure you haven't royally messed it up, that saves a lot of legal hours. So that's probably one of my favorite use cases. Of course, content creation, building lists. It can build lists for you, for all you salespeople out there looking for a list of this or that. Just ask Chat. There we go. I have a slogan for him.
Yeah, there's really interesting plugins with Excel too. It's really going to save a lot of time. It's pretty cool.
I just signed up for the plugin waitlist, so hopefully it'll connect with Slack and all of our other tools, Asana and email and all that good stuff. Hopefully get more automated than having to forget that I forgot to follow up on something and then drop the ball a week later. But How about you, Jamie? Do you guys get to use it for any fun, exciting data stuff?
Yeah, and it's definitely bleeding into our research department. And essentially instantly being able to understand what are the demand drivers. Why do people go to any of these markets as we're sort of categorizing and understanding them? We actually did a project with our entire executive leadership at AirDNA last week where we went through each department sort of and trying to understand and brainstorming how could AI ChatGPT sort of work its way into each department and how we should be leveraging it. And I was just blown away by the ideas that everyone else had from sales and BDRs and be able to understand why any one company might want to leverage data as short-term rental data in their business and sort of outlining the key ways they could leverage it and sort of build that use case to our finance department, HR, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think there was this like panic that it was just going to come for the copywriting jobs, but this is a great, we're starting to see actually how this can really help and make our lives easier, more efficient, give you time to do meaningful work. So
yeah, I love that. I think we're all fans of that. We're all fans. Okay, so going into the main topic, since we've spent a couple minutes this morning just kind of going into industry news and stuff. The main thing that sparked the conversation or the title for the episode, can we prevent an industry crisis, came from this article. Shout out to Simon Lehman and to the team at short-term rentals with a Z.com going into, property managers are sleepwalking into a crisis on the sense of, I think, expecting revenues and occupancies and all this other stuff to be just the same, if not better than 2021 compared to 2019 or previous years. And I would love to kind of just kick off because our audience, we all know, is a mix, short-term rental, hotel, thought leaders in the space from travel and the OTA distribution play. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this type of conversation and just how this kind of applies, maybe not just short-term rentals, but could this apply into hotels as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think Jamie can help support this with some numbers, but anecdotally speaking, the last year or two in vacation rentals, occupancy was like a dream come true. Rates were a dream come true. And now there's so much new supply added that both of the other two factors are softening a little bit. Am I right, Jamie?
Absolutely, Michael.
So far, so good.
Yep.
From the hotel side, though, rates, again, anecdotally speaking, haven't been higher. They keep going up. Occupancy might soften a little bit, but hotel rates are not slowing down. That might be a forced function of labor costs or other rising costs. But it does seem like short-term rental pricing is softening where hotel pricing is not. Jamie?
Yeah, and it's really a function of where we are in the cycle. So you think of the business cycle and of when and where new supply is coming in and maybe putting some dampening factors on occupancies. Short-term rentals, and I think as an industry, we're going to have to really get comfortable with this, is that the boom and bust is going to be much quicker. I mean, and maybe not bust, but the boom and softening is going to be much quicker than other forms of real estate, given that supply can come in an instant. Where with hotels, other forms of real estate, and it can take years for new supply to get added. For short-term rentals, we saw occupancy hit peak levels on a trailing 12-month basis in August of 2021. And as an industry, they hit 65%. Prior to COVID, as of December 2019, on a trailing 12-month basis, they're 53%. That is massive growth in occupancy, and even more exacerbated in some of the sort of destination, both mountain and coastal markets where vacation rental operators were operating in. And for me coming in from and having forecasted the hotel industry for 10 years before I joined short-term rentals, and joining the industry in October 2020 and sort of getting going and setting our first forecast. And we launched them in the beginning of 2021. It was very apparent from the beginning that the industry was going to see a big decline in occupancy levels, that they weren't sustainable, and that we weren't necessarily going to see a reversion to pre-COVID levels, but they had to come down. Supply during the pandemic had really decreased substantially. Demand came back strong, and that pushed occupancies to the record levels that we saw. And as sort of industry dynamics played out, more supply was going to come back in. Those excess profits that all these operators, property managers, owners were getting were not going to be sustainable long term, and that they were going to come down as new supply came back in. And we're really seeing that. We're seeing it across all different location types. And in February, on a year-over-year basis, available listings were up 26%. And that's massive growth as we look back through the history of the industry. And in a time when we're seeing occupancies come down. Right now, and on a year-over-year basis, for the month of February, they're down about 2%, but on a trailing 12-month basis, we're down about 4.5%. But if you go back to where we were at prior to 2019, we're still up 11% higher than 2019 levels. And that's where I think the debate gets in of, is this an industry crisis, or is this a normal sort of normalization of industry performance that, and it's maybe a lack of communication out there, a lack of understanding that, and we were going to get back to these levels. And it's not a crisis that we're getting back down. It was going to happen, and it was very predictable that of what's happening today.
Yeah, like were we ever meeting our full potential because we were so supply constrained? And by unlocking more supply, the demand is there. It's just we needed to open that up. I mean, some of those numbers are insane. Where you have supply growth by 26%, but occupancy, it only drives occupancy down by between 2 and 4%. That's a great sign for the industry. The larger macro concern could also come from housing prices and people paying too much for houses, rates declining a little bit, occupancy declining a little bit, and now they can't afford these second homes. That could cause things to tumble downhill in a not so great way. But I mean, back to Simon's point, there's a lot of things to look at when you're looking at the financial health of your business. One of the things that I would be very concerned about would be some of your vendors at risk of going away. Venture capital money is drying up. On a global aggregate, venture capital valuations are down 32% in the past 12 months. So these companies are going to have to raise at a down round if they can raise at all. And if your vendors are not in good financial health, if they're not profitable, if they haven't been around forever, if they haven't just raised a round or two, you might not get your phone answered next time you're calling, this provider, that provider, because there will be companies that go out of business this year, guaranteed, and it's probably not going to be just one or two. So I hope that's not the case, but you should also be vetting the financial health of your partners and your vendors as to not be kind of caught holding the bag and get into some trouble.
Yeah, I think that this kind of is a forced return to sustainability and profitability. That for a long time, it was like you just had an idea and somehow your company was valued at millions and millions of dollars, and there was just like a seemingly endless supply of cash. And it's like, does your product actually contribute real value, that when operators are looking to kind of make some cuts and see where they could be more lean, like, is your product essential? And I think that that's what a lot of vendors are going to find out, whether they're essential or not, But I find that the art, like Simon's point, is a little demonizing of, there's like sort of like opportunistic Airbnb investors. And I think that it's really easy to be critical in hindsight and say like, oh, they should have, looked into this, or they should have known, or had realistic expectations. But I think that a lot of people saw a good investment opportunity, and they didn't really see that it was going to be a business that was very labor intensive. And so a lot of people were doing really well. It makes a lot of sense why people jumped on this bandwagon pretty quickly. So I think that there's a lot in general in the, like, our media recently, there's been a lot of catastrophizing over what's going to happen. But I think Jamie's correct. Like, this is a little bit more of like a reset and a leveling off of what our industry performance actually is.
Yeah. And to go off of like the STR Wealth Conference, when we first got on stage, like the first day, I think Julie and I asked, how many of you in here own 1 to 5 properties that you own and operate type deal? And 90% of the room raised their hand. And, then we asked like co-host, and then hands went down. Then we asked arbitrage, all the hands basically went down. So there's a lot of owners in the space that I think, they're doing great. They're making killer money, even though, yes, this is kind of like you said, Brandy, I think the best way is they saw a good investment opportunity, didn't realize how much operational like labor it was going to take, but they're making it work at the end of the day. It's not like they're turning over sideways and, humming and hawing on what they're going to do to pay their mortgage or to even pay themselves. Like, they're making really good money, and they're looking at creative ways to scale and grow. And, there's a lot of talk in, becoming more efficient in operations and tech stacks. And like Michael said, like vetting through their tech. They're not just signing up at the first property management software they hear anymore. They're actually taking the time to see where they're at to where they're going to go. So I think that was a very big like takeaway insight for me during that whole week in Nashville, if that makes sense. So
I always have loved the owner operator model if you're a reasonably good operator, because you're just not cutting up the pie any further. And if a property management company is going to take 25 to 35%, yeah, there's a lot of costs that go into that. But the thing you're saving for the most is time by handing it to a property manager, time and expertise. Both of those, if this is your full-time job and you can make it work that way, you're going to make more money, plain and simple. But property managers are there because a lot of people that own these second homes are making more money than they would if they just managed a handful of their own privately owned homes. So I love that is a seemingly growing segment. Actually, Jamie probably has some data between RVOs and professionally managed properties. Where's the direction going there, Jamie? I've been in the industry about a decade, and it's always been in between the 40 and 60, 60 and 40 kind of split. Where are we today?
And still the growth is happening on the ends. So it's happening with the larger property managers, and it's happening with the individual hosts, those with 1 to 5. So the larger property managers are, I think, in the end, and I think Simon calls this out, of there could be great opportunity for well-run property managers to absorb up a lot of this supply for people that maybe get tired of it, maybe aren't seeing the returns that they expected. You put it in the hands of a professional, and they maybe increase your revenues by 20% and cover whatever fee they would might be charging you by just running it much more profitably. And I do think there's lots of opportunity out there for that. But even so, there's still massive growth happening on the individual side, especially in some of the sort of larger cities, and even some of the small and mid-sized cities that are just seeing renewed growth in the past couple of years of people wanting to and travel to those areas, and that's continuing today. What's and maybe a bit alarmist and could provide also opportunity too is just what we're seeing in terms of housing values. We've created an index of housing values based on where they're located and their sort of exposure to short-term rentals. So over-indexing to the areas where there's the most, and we've now seen peak to trough declines of 5% already in terms of home values. They're still 33% higher than 2019 levels. So there's a lot of built up equity today. But if you got in maybe a year and a half ago, you've already and maybe expected those revenues to continue, home values to continue to appreciate. You've already seen a 5% decline in your RevPAR. You've seen a 5% decline in your home values. And maybe that's where it gets a bit alarmist of, and if you underwrote both of those to continue to grow, that you've maybe already seen an erosion of 10% of your equity there.
There's another component of regulation that I think is going to be, a continuing factor. New Orleans just passed some STR bans, or not bans, but restrictions and things like that, and that just keeps cascading across the country. So I think that provides for the people that already have properties in those areas, it's probably good because you're going to be the only show in town. But I think that the regulations will start to restrict the increase in supply, especially more like single family home residential areas, because that seems to be like the biggest source of contention these days.
For sure. I would love to ask a question kind of going into Michael's point earlier with like vetting the financial health of your vendors. I would love to ask all of you guys this question. Do you think we're more into like a crisis on the operator side going into like whatever the whole point of the article was? Or do you think we'd be ending up, especially with like, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank all going under, do you think we'd be heading more towards a crisis due to lack of financial infrastructure and support on the vendor side rather than the operator side? Or are we just not heading into a crisis at all and we're all just kind of figuring out this new landscape of finance, changes and occupancy?
I think a lot of the vendors are going to be in a lot of trouble, and it puts, folks like Simon in great spots that broker sales of companies. Some companies that should go out or go under might not because they got lucky and raised, last year. But the companies that are good and maybe timing wasn't great might be in trouble. So I do expect we'll see some, real named players either fire sale or just straight up go under. I hope it's not the case, but all of the flashing red lights are there for the tech side, the tech space in general. VCs, again, they're investing, but they're not investing much, and they're not investing at great valuations. And if you're stuck in kind of the later rounds, Series B type of companies, it's tough to raise a Series B right now with valuations where they are. If you're not profitable, if your growth isn't absolutely insane. So I think we'll see a lot of down rounds in the best case scenario, and we'll see in the worst case scenario a good handful or two of companies between now and probably Verma not make it.
Yeah, I think you're also going to see like anyone that's like starting a company right now is probably, I would not like to be in that position, as like right now there are options for almost every part of the business, and there's a couple of them. So it's like, unless you're bringing something truly spectacular to the table, it's going to be difficult to raise money and then to get customers. So I think we might see a stall of maybe like even a couple of years of new like new technology coming out, which is obviously not good for innovation. But I also think that the companies that will make it through all of this will have hopefully better products and will be more financially sound and can, improve the product and things like that.
I was going to say, I kind of like that, to be honest, with the amount of new companies that reach out to do stuff. And it's like, wait, there's like 20 of you doing the same thing. It was just different names. So in a not bad way, I don't mean this in any negative like tone, but it actually kind of be nice to have a slowdown of those similar companies popping up just on different models. But go ahead, Jamie. Sorry for
more sponsors. Will, why are you turning those down?
Hey, I'm all about the long game, baby. I want sponsors that are going to be here to last, not go out in 6 months.
So, and maybe bring it back to where we were starting the year of, and more than a 50% chance of recession, and sort of waiting for that sort of black swan event that could push the economy under. We might be there with this latest financial crisis. The estimates that I've seen in terms of just, what this banking crisis means to the overall economy is definitely a tightening of lending standards. And with that tightening, essentially the equivalent of the Fed last week announcing like a 50 to 100 basis point increase in interest rates in terms of what that means for overall slowing of the economy. And if now all of a sudden small, medium-sized businesses don't have the ability to go out and either raise or borrow money to fund their expansion or for additional hires, and that's going to put a limiting factor on growth, and that we could very well be sitting here in Q3 of this year in a recession, and knowing what recessions mean for discretionary income and parts of the economy, like the hospitality sector, that's concerning. And speaking at the hotel conference last week, I'm very worried about the outlook of business travel, because if you think out of business and discretionary income like travel to conferences, to meeting with clients, and you tend to cut back on those type of expenses before you start cutting back on employees. So that could be the first thing to come. And then if companies aren't hiring, even if we don't start to see massive layoffs, you could start to see the unemployment rate and start to tick up just from a lack of hiring. And that could start to put pressure on different aspects of the economy. And our industry is maybe one, or has been one of the most exposed over past downturns.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because that's like kind of looking forward to the rest of the year. And then I think about the current moment where, a lot of people are still hiring for, restaurant jobs and in the hotels trying to get cleaners and maintenance people. So I think, as someone who's trying to make financial decisions for the rest of the year and make these kind of like smart decisions now to protect ourselves, it's hard to grapple sometimes with that outlook versus like the immediate reality of what we need to support the business, and trying to make sure that you don't overhire, but then also that you have enough people to actually carry out the functions of your business. So it's I feel like these last couple of years, every year is an anomaly in some way. Like it's been very hard to predict and make these decisions, so I guess only time will tell, but it would be nice to have a little bit more like concrete information.
Yeah.
Like,
and that, I was just going to say, that said, like both us and STR, the hotel forecasting company, have mild recessions baked into our outlook. And we both have demand continuing to grow for both hotel demand and short-term rental demand. There's just so many tailwinds still with the recovery of international travel, of just still and broad pent-up demands for services, and both of us still think that the share of wallet is going to continue to move towards travel and experiences and maybe away from things, and less Amazon boxes showing up, but maybe one or more trips during the year that continues to benefit our industry, but there's just, and maybe a bit more risk to the downside now than there was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I love it. It's like that meme or GIF of like our generation just being like, when is there not going to be a historical event that's going to happen? Can we just like chill out on these events for a little bit, give us like a break? But yeah, it is what it is, right? Any final thoughts or comments on this? I think it's a really interesting topic that'll probably continue, obviously, throughout the coming weeks on the show, especially as we get into more articles, bring on more guests and experts on kind of stuff like this. But before we wrap it up, any final thoughts from you three?
I think just echoing off what Michael said, that knowing your vendors and their health and kind of the ecosystem that you've built is going to be really important, because you don't want one of those players to, drag you down a little bit. So definitely having those conversations and trying to make maybe some difficult decisions now about like what is actually necessary to run the business and what is just nice to have.
Yeah, be prepared. So when you have to make those decisions, it's not chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about you,
Jamie? And even for operations, and maybe this is one of the points Simon was trying to get to, of do downside planning in your own business. Like let's understand how would your finances work if occupancies got back down to 2019 levels? If we weren't able to grow rates by 2 or 3% over the next year, what if rates actually fell by 2 or 3%? What would the finances of your own business look like? And start doing some of that, even if you're not sort of taking into your baseline forecast of here's what we expect to happen, but at least if that did happen, and having some scenarios sort of planned out on how you could adapt and make sure that your business can survive it.
Totally agree. And Jamie, since that you're here with us on this episode, we got the whole family together. You want to give us an AirDNA fact of the week?
Oh, I do. So I'm the fact of the week comes in about booking summer vacation, and I'm going to maybe combine two facts of the week. And one is, and maybe this is a point of strength for the industry, of pre-booking activity. So bookings that have happened sort of January through March of this year are up over 15% year over year. So, and thinking about the overall health, and that's very strong forward bookings. And as we look out over the summer, demand's up 10 to 15% overall, and certain markets up substantially more than that. And it gets back to our stat is around, and is it time to book your summer vacation? And the answer is yes. And something to think about is just, and for operators, how you're pricing discounts, and as you're a guest, how you might be able to take advantage of those discounts. And on average, guests save about 9% by booking 2 weeks ahead. So a lot of these pricing models do work, whereas you get closer to the stay date, you do see discounting happening. But as we all know in short-term rentals, not every unit is the same or can be treated the same. And if you want to get the best homes and the best locations, you've got to book now and book those well in advance.
I love it. Well, you can get your own AirDNA fact of the week by checking out the link in the show notes and using code GMH20. And for the rest of our listeners and viewers, we look forward to bringing more episodes to you. Like and subscribe. Make sure you send us comments, what you like, what you don't like, what we can talk about in the future. And we'll see everyone again next week.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.